Hello my dear friends, this is a PaintyKat. Today we will paint this lovely tulip field, and first let's transfer sketch to the watercolor paper. Print sketch first on a print paper and then cover the back side of the paper with a pencil. Then put your sketch on top of watercolor paper and fix it with a type. Line all details on sketch with a pen. I'm using pen. It's helping to me to understand what lines I already did and what I haven't. It's also possible to use just a pencil. This way of sketch drawing giving us a really nice, very clear and accurate sketch on a final watercolor paper. All sketches of my channel you can find in my Facebook group. Just follow the link below. Well done! Today I will use wet on wet technique, and I have to put a thin cotton fabric on top of a glass. After, I have to put nice amount of clear water on my fabric. I'm doing it with a flat big brush. I'm using Madapalum fabric. It's also possible to use just simple, thin and good quality cotton fabric. Then I'm making wet the back side of my watercolor paper. That's it. Let's turn it. And now I have to make wet the front side of paper. I can control the wetness of top layer of paper with a paper napkin. Now our paper is ready for work. I recommend this tutorial for intermediate level for everyone who wants to paint watercolor. If you are a beginner of watercolor, please check first the planet tutorial, rose tutorial and anemone tutorial. There we're doing just the same, but we're making it step by step and will help to you to understand and learn the basic techniques for watercoloring, and after you can try this tulip field. Main color for my background today, it's a cobalt blue. I want to make it deep shaded for bottom part of my composition and light shaded for top part. Cobalt blue for background and green for stems and leaves of my tulips. Now I'm working on a wet surface. Probably it's look like the top layer of my paper already dry, but it's not so. The middle layer and a back layer of my paper is still very wet, and it's keeping the top layer of paper wet as well. With this technique, it's possible to control the wetness of your paper very well, and you can be not in a rush. You can work very slow, and still you can paint with wet in wet technique. please use clear water to make really well and soft gradient between background color and white. Please avoid all tulips for now. We will work with a red color for tulips and the red and blue and green giving us unpleasant color mix. So before I will start to work with the red, I will change water and clean all my brushes. It's looking like I'm painting now on dry paper, but look, as soon as I'm trying to mix different shades together, it's looking soft and watery, because the middle part of our paper and back layer is still really wet. Also, please be sure you not fix your paper with any type from start of work, because with this technique we have a very flat and very nice level of our paper. When you're fixing the dry paper first and then making it wet, you will get unpleasant gaps between different areas on your paper, and the shades will float not smooth. With this technique, when we're working on a wet fabric, we can paint on absolutely flat surface, and we will stretch our paper with the type as a last step of our work. I'm avoiding now all flowers and all stems and leaves on a foreground. Look how well different shades blending together. There are no any spots. I can add a little bit of water and blend all shades well together and gradient it to white. I want to demonstrate you this painting process in actual time, but remember, if you don't want to wait, you can speed up this video in twice in YouTube settings. I want to demonstrate it in actual speed to show you that on this way of painting you can be not in a rush, you can be very relaxing enjoying everything you're painting now. You have enough time for any work on this paper now, because again, in any moment, we can add more water on the fabric and we can keep this paper wet as long as we need to. Sometimes when I'm working on a big paintings, I have to work for hours and hours. Sometimes even it's more than 1 or 3 days. And still I can control the wetness of paper very well and my work not drying completely in this time. It's not possible to do if you're painting an usual way, just putting water only on top of the paper. Green I'm using today, it's a yellow-green shade and it's have a very nice feeling of tulips green. This shade can be very intensive, so put good amount of water in it. As you can see, now I can add any shades on a background and still it's mixing well. I will blend all background shades now to white with big flat brush. Now I change water for a clean one and I'm starting to work with tulips. I add a little bit more water on these 3 tulips on a background because I want to create them unfocused. I'm using a different shades of red. This is a scarlet red, Muddy Lake red, and carmine red. The background around these 3 is still wet, so red's color will blend a little bit with the background. It will give us an effect of unfocused photo. My most beloved tulips have a red and white mix on the petals, so today I want to create this kind of tulips. Usually they are red on top and middle part and more white there where it's attached to a stem. Also, some of these tulips have a lovely pink stripes on the petals. Stripes we will create only on tulip on a foreground. These tulips we have on the background will have no any sharp details. As you can see now, I mixed a little bit of Watercolor red and a scarlet red. I blended shades with the tip of my watercolor brush. Watercolor needs a little bit of time to work and blend well with my background, so this is time for me to leave my background's tulips and to paint middle ground tulips. Now you can see contrast between red ends of petals and a very light background behind it. This is the first layer of watercolor on the tulips, and later we will add a little bit of details, but the first layer have to be a little bit more dry for it. I'm blending some shades with the clear water inside of petals. Let's move to the next one. I put an amount of water in the center of my tulip. It will give me a nice area to blend some shades together, but ends of this tulip will be a more sharp because the background close to it already a little bit more dry. Let's move to another one. This tulip I'm planning to create a really deep shaded, because this is tulip behind of our main one, and part of our main one here will be really light, so for better contrast I'm planning to create more deep shaded middle tulip. Now you can see some reds are floating in a background areas, but I like this effect of watercolor. It's giving a really soft, nice effect and mood to our composition. Time to work with our main tulip. I choose carmine and Watercolor red as main shades for this one, but also I want to add a little touch of scarlet red for softer look. I have here a main petal in front of us, so I'm creating a shadows on two sides of this petal. For smaller details, please choose smaller size brushes. It's giving better control. Now I can create more sharp edge for this tulip because the background part already getting more dry. It's still not dried completely because the back side of paper still wet, but it's dry enough to let me create a sharp edges for details I like. Now you can see the main petal we have in front of us, and I want to create some tiny details on it. I want to paint small stripes. I think it's looking just lovely on a tulips. I'm using a brush number 0 and I'm creating a tiny stripes. I'm working with my brush now almost as I do with the pencils. It's giving a really sharp and well-controlled lines. Let's add a little bit more stripes and blend it with a big flat brush. Just the same from another side. This is a dark shaded carmine for darker details. It's a middle vein on this petal. Also some stripes, and I will add more stripes on the left side of this petal and blending a little bit with a clean wet brush. This tulip is a main one, so here we can create a really nice contrast between different petals. Today we're working not petal by petal as we did on our previous tutorial. Here we're working as soon as we can understand that wetness of paper is enough to paint these petals separately. This way of painting giving to us softer effects in the end. I want to create better contrast between tulip and background, so here I have to create deeper shade of blue on a background. The background is still a little bit wet, so I add here a bit more water with a watercolor brush and added deeper shaded but same cobalt blue. I'm using the same shade than before, just put here more watercolor pigment. It will help us to keep a really clear look for all shaders on our composition. The same, the better contrast I'm creating behind this tulip. It's close to our center of composition, so here we have to keep the best contrast in our painting. Here I have a tiny mistake. As you can see, some blue and green floated inside of my small tulip on the main one. I will show you how to fix it later. Now I want to add a little more red on the center petal in our main tulip, and then blending a little bit of those stripes I did before. They are half dry, so now I can blend it, but still some stripes are visible. While my tulips are drying, I want to create the first layer for last tulip. It's still white, so let's color it. Background behind it completely dry. When I'm saying completely now, I mean only for top layer of paper. Middle layer and back layer of this list of paper are still wet, so remember, in any time you need, you can get back to background or any other part of your painting and do the any you need, and still you will be able to work in wet and wet technique. That's enough for this tulip. Let's dry it a little bit, and in this time I want to work on the stems for my background tulips. Background behind them are a little more light, so for contrast I choose to create darker stems. All stems and leaves on a foreground. I want to create a really light, again for better contrast. I choose for this yellow-green color. It can be too intensive, so be sure you put here a nice amount of water, because we have to keep the shade really light. Also, I want to cover the stem of my main tulip, but background here a little bit wet still, so shades between stem and background will mix together. Also, let's watercolor stem for another tulips. The shades is still the same. It's light green, light yellow green. I'm happy enough with my main tulip, but just want to be sure in small details on it. So I created more sharp line between background and left side of tulip. Just did a little bit more intensive shade here. Remember, smaller details, smaller brush. The same for right part of our tulip. It's time to create better details for another tulips that we have close to our main one. So now I'm creating better visible line for this tulip. and adding some tiny details. The colors are still the same. Look, I can add more water now, but shades I put here before as a first layer, not going anywhere. But I want to warn you, don't rub in water that you put on the next layers. Don't rub it in, just put it on top with a really tiny touch of a surface of your paper. This way it's possible to create as much layers as you wish. Let's work for another one. Just the same, I put a bit of clean water on top my first layer, not rubbing, just put in. Water need to be clean, of course. And now you can create a second layer, wet and wet. Background here absolutely dry already. Also, I want to create more light edge of a petal in front of us. This way I have to put a small amount of water on the edge, and after I may dry my brush. It's a slanted flat brush, and I take a water from my paper now, and of course paper taking a small amount of watercolor with it, so the area where I'm doing it more lighter. It's just the same for this side of petal. I want to create a bit more soft look. Here I'm blending a little bit. I want also to create some small stripes on another tulips. If you will look on your work from distance, at least 1 meter, it will help to you understand what details you have to create more. Or maybe you already have enough, so just stop. Also, I want to create this shadow that giving effect of a petal in front of us. Again, the best way to understand do you need more work or you have to stop, it's take a look on your painting from a distance. I'm doing it at least once in 30 minutes. Also, I want to add some tiny details on those tulips on a background far from us. But remember, those 3 tulips need to have still more common look. It's very easy to make over-detailed tulips there. So that's why it's so important to look at your painting from the distance sometimes, because when we are working close to our composition, we have a better control for details really, but we can lose the common view for the whole work. The distant look will give you more common look and will help you to control a nice balance between details on your composition. Now I want to create more sharp look for our stem of main tulip. Again, I'm making a contrast between the stem and background. I'm not making stem lighter, I'm just giving a better contrast between stem and background. It's just the same cobalt blue. The middle part of paper still wet, so I still can work in wet technique. I added a little bit of water and a cobalt blue and shades just mixing together very well. Only details we still have left. This is a green leaf on a foreground, so I just coloring it with a light yellow-green. The same for another green leaves. Background here already dry, so outline of these green leaves staying very sharp. Now I'm painting with still the same shade but better pigmented. For creating better details, I'm using the tip of brush. Also, I have this small triangle. I missed it in time where I was working on my background, so I will fix it now. And a little bit more green for this petal for better shades. Some stripes on leaves. And some deeper shade for the stem, again for better contrast. Also, I have to create shade on this small detail of green leaf. Now it's time to sign my work. Remember, don't put your sign too close to edges because we still will have to cut our work later. Now let's remove it. I will stretch today on this glass. I made it dry and clean, put my work on top of it and fix with a type. Fix it well. I will dry with a hair dryer and I will do it 4 or 5 times with the time breaks between it. Now my work absolutely dry. 16 hours have passed. I cut it, and that's it. My painting is done. If you have any questions, guys, don't be shy to ask. Also, please share to me your paintings in my Facebook community. I will be really happy to see you. It was a PaintyKat, and I wish you all the best. Bye bye.